Marsh McLennan's an older company. It's not long celebrated 150-year anniversary.
Wow.
So it's been going quite a long time. Big US company.
Any legacy applications from back then?
Not that old, but thankfully. 85,000 employees, operate in 130 countries, all professional services, so risk, HR, reinsurance, so good business, interesting.
And what's your role there?
So I'm the enterprise architect.
Okay.
Prior to that, I was the head of engineering for identity services, ran operations for identity services, and helped them evolve the identity world from what used to be guys who were Windows engineers doing corporate services. So it's been a journey.
And at what point would you say identity became a big part of that? So,
I mean, I've been there 16 years. And at the time it's made up of 4 separate businesses. So it's Mercer, Marsh, Guy Carpenter, Oliver Wyman. They were all separate. And they then made the decision, let's pull them all together.
Yeah.
Let's stop duplicating services, bring all core services in, and build an internal technical services team. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
So we brought everything under our control. AD was always seen as that thing that just give you usernames and passwords. And that was it.
Yeah.
You know, it was a very simple service, or it was presumed to be a simple service. Our Active Directories have grown from NT4. So a lot of them have got old NT4 NetBIOS names.
Yeah.
Some were worked on by Microsoft, some were worked on by different consultancy firms. So there was lots of differences between all those ADs, and they're all still there today. When I started, it was 120-ish domains. We're now down to about 20, with our core users scattered amongst a small subset of those domains. And ADs, you know, it just sits there and does what it does. We then started a journey about 12 years ago. We were listening to the developers and the application teams. We were watching the market.
Right.
And we were seeing people talk about modern authentication. And at the time, everything was legacy. It was still NTLM, Kerberos, siloed, people building their own databases, doing everything themselves.
Right.
And we had a small digital team at the time. It's grown a lot since then, but it was a really small digital team. And they wanted to focus on getting applications quick to market. Right. Building applications quick for the customers, for our clients. And they didn't want to be tunneling back into AD, but they wanted to use an Active Directory identity to authenticate that user.
Okay, but they didn't want to tie it directly into AD?
But they didn't want to tie it to AD. They wanted the simplification and speed of delivering their application. So we went out and we started with ADFS 1.
Okay.
And we didn't put it into production. Then we started with ADFS 1.1 and we still didn't put it into production. So when ADFS 2 came out, it was stable enough for us. And we started deploying that in very small numbers to get a handful of applications up so that the team could start understanding how the frameworks would evolve and how they could build that authentication into their application without requiring heavy Active Directory and that heavy client server type build. We then had one of our smaller companies come to us and say, we'd love to use this new service called Office 365. Okay. And at the time, we were looking at other enterprises and we weren't seeing much of adoption. And we said, what do you want to use it for? And they said, Dynamics. It's really going to be great for building a CRM system in. Right. We'd love to use that. So we built them an ADFS environment for that. And it worked really well, kept that company happy. Then our other businesses started to pay attention to it and realized, yeah, we quite like this. It's in the cloud, we haven't got to host the infrastructure. We can use the services at will, we can scale at will. We'd like some. So we grew our ADFS environment. Problem being, because of our domains, the way they've evolved and grown. Most of them have dissimilar namespaces. None of it is true root and child. It's root, tree roots, or completely dissimilar namespaces. We have some domains that are non-rootable namespaces, so that real horrible mess of domains. We couldn't get the logic working properly in ADFS, and the regex was getting very, very complex. The rules were getting very complex. We needed something else that was easier for the teams, easier for the admins, and easier for the businesses to integrate with. So we went out to market, and we did this about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And we went to Gartner and spoke to them, took some guidance. Now, we already had Ping as well as ADFS.
At Ping?
So we had Ping.
Okay.
And Ping was ring-fenced to a unique environment we built for coming in through our gateway services. So it was a very specific use case. We didn't want to build that out to be a more global solution, because again, really, really complex Ping to write that logic. So they introduced us to a company called Okta. Now, Okta had been in my lab for a few years, and we'd been playing with it, and they were a small startup when we first spoke to Okta.
So this is 2012, more or less?
We originally started it around 2010, 2011. And then 2012, we started working with Okta, and we started seeing how we can take that environment in. So we've been a full Okta customer for 9 years.
Okay.
So we're just about to soon to hit our 9-year anniversary. And we went with Okta because, similar to Semperis, they were eager to partner, eager to grow their business, eager to understand how an enterprise wants to build application integrations, how they want to make the applications work, what type of user base it needs to support, how to work with complex directories, how to manipulate identities, manipulate attributes, manipulate claims. So it was a great opportunity for us, because we were going to get a company going to help build application integrations for what we needed, and they were going to understand what an enterprise was looking for. So it was a very mutual partnership, and we've grown ever since. Now, our goal has always been to get to fully automated application requests. So we've had that transition period where we've created in ServiceNow and ticketing systems where users can put in a request for an app, fill in half a dozen pieces of information, goes to an admin, they build the app, and off they go. And it was on average 2 to 3 week turnaround. The business wanted quicker than that. The business are agile, or that's the new method they're bringing in across the board. So they want it quicker. They want self-service. They don't want to wait for some admin to sit down with them and say, what do you want to configure? Who's it for? You know, what's the URLs? They don't want that. They just want speed of deployment. So we've done that. So we've fully integrated and built a complete self-service solution for basic applications. If it's something more complex, we may need to tweak it afterwards, but we'll get a base framework application in there. And from you filling in the request, so we've built our own front-end system that not only the user fills the request in for what they want out of the application, it also updates the app inventory. So we know who owns that application. It also triggers the reviews of that application. Is it safe? What's the security standards for that application? What information is it going to expose? Is it PI? Is it SPI? What attributes is it going to expose? If all of that is considered okay, then it's around a 10 to 15 minute process, and you'll have your application.
And this is based on the applications that you built around the Okta platform?
Yes, these are all in-house, in-built applications.
Okay.
So anything that's from a third party, that's still got a little bit of admin integration, because it could be an application from the Okta network. So again, if people have not really used Okta, one of the things they've got is a great catalog. It's 6,000 plus apps, I believe, where you can choose, and a lot of that complex configuration is done for you. So you just enter small amount of information, you've got an application ready.
Right.
With the only real complex pieces being, what are your sign-on policies? What MFA rules do you want? Do you want knowledge factors, possession factors? Do you want biometrics?
Right.
Do you want to classify the application as in-house or off-network? And we use rules like that to choose whether you get an MFA challenge. So if you're on our trusted network, we've got network IP rules, we know our egress points.
Right.
We can pre-authenticate you. So we use SSO integration with it. So it's been a really, really interesting journey.
Yeah.
It's allowed our application teams to deliver applications at speed, meet the requirements of the customers, meet the requirements of the clients, build secure applications. Okta's multi-factor integration has allowed us to get all of our users, so all of our employees, it doesn't matter what the app is, it doesn't matter what the service is. If it requires multi-factor, it's always Okta. So it's only ever the one identity they need to worry about managing MFA for. They haven't got a phone full of MFA applications, it's always the one. Now all of our users have multiple identities. We're a big company, we've got resource domains. One of the nice things about Okta, with the importing from all your multiple Active Directories, you can build your own LDAP rules. So you don't just have to do the simple, pick this OU, filter these users, put them in a group. You can build nice, complex LDAP requirements. We extend our schema. So we flag every user account on creation, and we'll flag it with either it's a service account, it's a test account, it's a secondary account, resource account, or your primary account. We then use those filters to choose whether you get into Okta or not. So we only allow primary accounts in there. So it's clean. We're not pulling in duplicate accounts. We're not pulling in anything that's not really required for any of the application services out there. So it's allowed us to onboard applications at speed. So we've got today 1,600 applications hosted through Okta, and it's growing on average at one a day.
One a day?
One a day. We've still got about 2,000-ish applications yet to put in, but that's because a lot of legacy, heavy applications out there. But we need to just build a simple integration for the business. One of the other great features of Okta, it's developer network. Brilliant. You know, it's similar to Microsoft. If you get stuck with Microsoft, you can Google it, odds are there's an article, some MVP's written something, you know where to go. Okta, similar, but the majority is contained in their developer network. So lots of good insight, good snippets of code. So when the developers come to us and say, how do we make our app work? You know, because they may not have worked on a modern authentication framework. We can point them straight to the developer network, and we've classified that within our support environment. So they don't need to go searching and hunting for it. They can search within our Confluence system, and it will give them the links, give them the URLs, give them access to it. And we hold internal workshops to help grow the developers themselves. But because Okta's been there a long time now, I mean, modern authentication, whether it's SAML, OpenID, WSFed, it's all the same. It doesn't matter who the identity provider is, it's the same technology. So because of their adoption of those modern technologies and those modern authentication systems, the IDP is not as important to them, but they like the ease of integration and the fact they can find anything they want with a simple query in Okta's developer network. So it's allowed a really speedy growth.
Right. So it sounds like what worked for you, especially since you onboarded very early on the Okta journey, is that the depth of configurability and flexibility of the things that you can do with Okta really worked well for you as a company that's able to do the development.
They did. Yeah. For the admins love the simplicity.
The simplicity, okay.
So you give an admin ADFS and say, configure a simple application, they can go away and do it. And they'll come back and it may be a couple of hours whilst they work out the logic, the claim rules. They write the relevant regex, they write the relevant claim pieces to get it working. With Okta, on average, it's 5 minutes. They can go in, there's only 3 or 4 pieces of information. If the application is a well-known, the integration's been done by somebody else, it's in their network, in the application network, you choose it. There's very little configuration to do. So the admins love that simplicity. The other thing it allowed us to do is, again, because it's one IDP, we could set and define all of the security standards.
Right.
So we could build all of our controls. And I mean, people here today, they'll listen to some interesting conversations from the different representatives. And the one thing that's fairly common is most of the breaches, they'll be down to human error. It's always human error, unfortunately. Sometimes you may find a 0 day, but the majority are human error.
Yeah. So there's been several high-profile breaches. It's not exactly Okta breaches.
Yeah.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, so we've worked with Okta on the last 3 big breaches because we needed to understand, were we affected? Were we impacted? Whilst Okta were putting together who the affected companies were, we got enough information off them to understand the breach type and the mechanism for the breach. We could then go away and check our environment and confirm it's clean and it's healthy and it's in a good state. One of the best features with Okta, it's syslog.
Right.
Fantastic. You can query anything in this syslog.
Okay.
It's very flexible. There's a lot of good information out there on how to build that query and how to get the information out. So the delays on anything written to it are within seconds. So if you're dealing with a breach or a potential breach, or you've heard there's a breach, rather than wait for Okta to give you the queries to run yourself, you can just be in there straight away. You can be delving into it, you can be taking it apart, and you can help the leadership team, the board, and the DAR teams understand, are we comfortable? Are we safe? Have we got any risks? What's our potential mitigation? So for the last 3 breaches, the first decent one was probably MGM, that a lot of people may have heard of.
MGM breach. This was a year ago? This was
yeah, I think it was
wasn't that
a
long
couple
ago.
of years ago, MGM's. But the worst thing with it is bad configuration, to be honest, by their administrators. So one of the things we've done, our administrators of Okta can't log in off our network. So we've built network rules. You've got to come from our egress points. Okay. If you're not coming from our IP addresses, you can't log in as an administrator. We also enforce multi-factor on every administrator. Don't care who you are, don't care how much it annoys you, you're getting multi-factor put on you. And we also put a time limit on, so if you've not moved your session, you're going to get another challenge. Yeah, it annoys admins, but it helps with safety. When we heard of the breach with MGM and there's a big worry, we were worried. Well, we didn't know what they got, where they got into Okta and what they managed. It came out that their admins were using a synchronized account from on-prem, which a lot of companies do.
Yeah.
We don't allow that. So we have stricter security policies and security standards. You can't use a normal account for elevation because you don't know where that account's being used. So you lose control the minute it's embedded in some other application and it's elevated. So we had separate accounts. They weren't. They also didn't enforce multi-factor. They allowed logins from anywhere. And it was a social engineering attack. They run the service desk. Service desk looked at it, it's a standard user. They didn't know it was a global admin, super org admin. They had none of that concept.
Right.
They just reset the password. They logged in. They were now the administrator. They could start deleting applications, reconfiguring, doing what they wished. So that was a worry, but it was that understanding. And when Okta came and worked with us, we were showing them what we've been doing. And they took a lot of that on board, and it's been rolled into new features. I think think it's actually next week or the week after, they enforce multi-factor on all admins. Right. It's about time. They finally, in the newer identity engine rather than the classic, the Okta admin desktop is now an application. You can build very custom rules, custom controls, and it's all about building things where the administrators' tokens have maximum token lifetimes. They're much shorter than a normal user. The MFA is much shorter. The session lifetimes are much shorter because you're an admin. You don't need a token that lasts for 12 hours. You don't need an MFA that's valid for 45 minutes. So we can bring tighter controls in. And we're trying to work with Okta to get that information out there to educate other customers. These are good hygiene practices. So that was the first one. The second real one, which concerned a lot, Okta's support network was breached. Mm-hmm. So we've worked with Okta on each one. They've never breached the core environment where your tenants live. They've never breached core. They breached the support network, which is third parties manage their support for them. And if anyone's ever used Okta, if you have an issue with an application or an issue with Okta, they ask you to upload a HAR file. So network traces from your browser. Usually the admin will do that. The user will tell them what's up. Admin will capture that HAR file and upload it to Okta. That's now in Okta's network. Okta warn you, clean your HAR file because it's got your secrets in there. Because if you've done a login, you've got a session token embedded in the HAR file. At the time, Okta's original, they call it Okta Classic now, they never had a maximum token lifetime. They do now, but they didn't. So those HAR files...
By default, it didn't have one.
By default, it didn't.
Right.
So that embedded HAR file secret is live forever.
Nope.
So of course, the attackers got hold of those, just replayed them. They're into all the companies who'd raised the support ticket. So that worried a lot of companies because a lot of companies have uploaded support tickets. Mm-hmm. So that was the next big one that caused concern for them. The third major one, this one again, human error, bad practice. Support engineer working over the weekend, used his own personal laptop. He saved the service account and the password for Okta's support environment on a text file on his desktop. His machine had malware on it. Yeah. They got a copy of it, they were in. And that account had full access and full control of their entire support environment. They could just they downloaded a lot of information. And again, it was that worry of, if you've configured your tenant and you set the flag, allow Okta support access to my tenant, they could get in. Okay. So again, big worry for a lot of customers. But if you follow good standards, good practices, you can minimize your risk, but always a worry.
So it's always back to hygiene and
it is.
Making sure of the basics. So 10 years later, as somebody who knows Okta inside out, would you say that Entra ID has caught up? Are we there yet?
Entra, yeah, it's an interesting one because I'm having that same discussion at the moment. So part of what I do in architecture is set strategy and vision. And this is one of the open questions. What do we do? Do we keep Okta? Do we migrate to Entra? Do we keep both? So we're heavy into Entra. Entra is bigger now than our Okta environment, but Okta's our strategic partner for modern authentication. Entra is where the application teams are developing more of their tighter integrations that still need an Active Directory, still need an LDAP, still need access to some of the services we host in Azure. It makes logical sense to place it in Entra. So we did a comparison a couple of years ago, and Entra was there. For what we use it for. Right. Entra offers the same services. There is still things Okta does that Entra don't, but they're catching up. Okay. Now, one of the nice features, I like Entra, by the way. I'm a big fan of Entra. One of the nice features I like about Microsoft, as long as you've got either a P1 or P2 license, it's free. They just give it to you. Right. Granted, they class it as preview because you're really the guinea pig and you test it, and report the bugs to them, and they stabilize their environment. With Okta, anything that's new is a new SKU. And they want to generate revenue. They're a company. So there's some differences between the two. Some things we like the way Microsoft work, but they're a bit slower. Others we like the way Okta work, but it comes at a cost. But it's been a mutual partnership for 9 years.
Well, thanks. So last couple of minutes, I want to open it up and see if anybody in the audience has any questions about Okta or your journey or MC. No one?
I got one. Are you federating back here? Yeah. Are you federating your Entra tenant to Okta for SSO, I assume?
We do.
Okay.
So yeah, we've done that since day one. It's been one of the benefits we found when we went to Entra, because our identities, originally we were...
The
mic's gone off. Oh, there it is. So originally we were alternate ID. So our UPNs and our emails didn't match. Probably like lots and lots of companies whose Active Directories have evolved. Okta could handle that a lot easier than what we could do with ADFS. So we federated straight to Okta. And it made sense, because again, for the user, it was a single MFA application that they needed to use. They didn't have to worry about Microsoft's Authenticator app. And we want to keep it easy for our users, because part of the journey, if you can keep it really easy for the users, adoption improves. And users are more likely to want to stick with using that MFA and not complain, even though they don't like it, but it's always the same one. So we did that probably 8 years ago, and it's been the same since.
Okay, and then a quick follow-up. Are you using Entra ID Connect Sync to provision to Entra, or is Okta provisioning over to Entra?
So Okta is provisioned from our on-prem AD. So we have it as like a V. So Active Directory syncs to Okta, Active Directory syncs to Entra. There is nothing between Okta and Entra. We keep them completely separate.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Do we have time for more? I'm not... One more. None? So I'll ask the last question then. What's the killer feature? Like, if you had to choose the number one, the one or two best features of Okta specifically for security, what would you say it would be?
Again, it's the simplicity.
Simplicity.
It's the more complex something is, you might think this is really, really great. It's really strong. It's really complex, but admins will miss something.
Right.
If there's too many points of configuration, something gets missed.
Yeah.
So Okta for us kept that really easy. Now, one of the other systems we've used to really enhance what we do. So again, probably one of the points I missed, we're 40 tenants plus with Okta, with the majority being consumer tenants. We have one core workforce tenant. We use Terraform to build our Okta environment.
Right.
That's allowed us again to turn around new tenants in hours, not days or weeks, but also build with our security standards. And again, it's become for us, it's a great feature. You know, I said to the admins just before I came here, you know, what is your favorite thing you do when you're building? And they said, it's Terraform now. That's their new simplification for them.
Yeah.
And you know, that's what we want to do. We want to keep it easy for the admins, easy for the users.
Excellent. Well, simplicity, configurability, community. Sounds good. Chris, thanks you. Pleasure talking to you.
Great. Thank you.
All right.